Just like in a spoken language, you have sentences and paragraphs. In the world of programming, we have expressions and code blocks. So this line right here, line 2, is what we call an expression. You can tell it's an expression because it ends with a semicolon. This is one line of instruction that we want the computer to execute. If I copy and paste this and then run this, you'll see it outputs hello world 2 times. The important thing to note here is the semicolon. If I remove the semicolon, I get an error. And that's because it doesn't know where the one sentence ends and the second sentence begins. Also, these don't need to be on separate lines. If I put the semicolon back and put this all on one line, the program will still execute correctly. It's just good practice, though, to try to keep your code clean and easy to read by separating on separate lines. The next thing we want to take a look at is the idea of variables. And variables are very common in programming languages. And in Dart, we identify a variable with the word var, and then whatever name you want to call it, we'll call it message, and then an equal sign, and then whatever value you want to put in that variable. Now, a variable is just a placeholder for some data that you want to use later on or reuse across multiple expressions. So in this case, let's take the hello world string here, and we will put that in as our variable. So in this case, what we're saying is, I want hello world to be put into the message variable. Now to use this, we'll just take message and we'll print message. This print command is actually what executes and sends our values to the console. So if I execute this now, we should see the same response. And then if I change this to hello, you'll see that it actually gets updated in the message variable, and then the message variable returns that to the print statement. Now you'll notice that we have quotes around this. And what's important about that is that that's our way of telling Dart that this is a literal string, that this is exactly what we want to be output to the screen. What's between the quotes is what is going to be stored in the variable. What does that really mean? Well, consider if I had a variable called hello and I gave it a value of goodbye. At this point, message equals hello. But if I remove the quotes, I'm actually telling message to use whatever the value of hello is, the variable. So if I run this, you'll see that it outputs goodbye instead of hello. And that's because the value, the literal string goodbye, is stored in a variable name hello. So to distinguish between a variable name and the actual literal strings that we want to use, we're going to put quotes around that to make sure that the Dart compiler knows we're talking about a word hello and not a variable named hello. Does everything need to have a quote around it? No. So if we create a variable called number, for example, we can create a variable called number and just give it a value of 2. Now you cannot create a variable with the name beginning with a number. So as far as Dart is concerned, there's no confusion that this number 2 could be a variable name. So what are some of the ways that you can use variables? Variables come in when you want to reuse a value. So what will often happen is you will set some variables in one part of your code, and then elsewhere you'll actually use it. So let's go ahead and print out the number. In this case, it'll get print out the number 2. And then what we can do is we can actually use an operator. In this case, we'll use the operator plus sign to actually add 3 to whatever that value is. So I run that, and it says number plus 3 equals 5. So it outputs the result of number plus 3. You can actually combine these things though, so I can create a variable called answer, and then I can actually create the expression of number plus 3. So this line is an expression that sets the answer of number plus 3 into the variable name called answer. And if I change this around, we'll get the same result.